Hi and welcome to Reddit Confessions. What you're about to hear isn't a story about rage. It's a story about slow, invisible heartbreak. The kind that clings to the inside of your ribs and doesn't let go. Let's begin. I guess you'll be fine soon, she said, laughing while I stood there shaking. She was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. Calm, carefree, beautiful in that effortless, dangerous way. I had just finished telling her that I'd cried in the bathroom stall at work that day, that I had a full-blown panic attack because she hadn't answered my texts for 12 hours straight. And she laughed. Not a cruel, cackling laugh. No, that would have been easier. It was worse. It was soft, amused, almost affectionate. You always get like this when I disappear for a while, she said, reaching for her perfume. You know I always come back. I think something in me broke in that exact moment. I just didn't realize it yet. For 3 years, I'd been unraveling quietly beside her, like a slow leak in a sinking boat, trying to smile while drowning inch by inch. Her name is Darla, and to me, she wasn't just my wife. She was the entire structure of my emotional stability. When she stopped looking at me the way she used to, the world shifted off its axis. But I didn't leave when she canceled our anniversary dinner for the 3rd year in a row. I didn't leave when she forgot to show up to my mother's memorial. I didn't even leave when I found 2 champagne glasses in the dishwasher after a weekend she claimed she spent alone. I stayed. I begged. I lowered myself to levels I'm ashamed to admit. I asked, "Is it me? Am I the problem? Just tell me what I can fix." She told me I was dramatic. "You feel too much," she said. "It's exhausting." She wasn't wrong. I do feel too much. I feel everything all the time. My chest is a cracked open window in the middle of a hurricane. But I thought love meant sheltering each other from the storm, not laughing while one of us got struck by lightning. She told me she was going on a weekend yoga retreat. No phones. Just deep healing in the mountains. I packed her bag for her. I printed her itinerary. I even kissed her forehead and said, "I'm proud of you for doing this." She didn't look back when she closed the door. But I did. I looked back at everything. At the empty wine bottles I hadn't touched. At the bedsheets that smelled like someone else's cologne. At the silence that had become our new language. I waited 2 days. No messages. No updates. Then I got an email. Not from her. From a stranger. Subject line, "You need to know." Inside was a single sentence. "She's not alone this weekend." There was a photo, blurry, taken from a distance. Darla, wrapped in a towel, sitting poolside at a luxury hotel, not a yoga retreat. Next to her was a man, shirtless, tan, laughing, hand resting on her leg. I stared at the screen for so long the autolock kicked in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up, quietly, walked to the fridge, opened it, saw the chicken she asked me to marinate still sitting untouched. Everything in our house was still cold, untouched, like it had been waiting for a decision I refused to make. And I knew right then she wasn't coming back for me. She might come back to the house, but not for me. So I started packing, quietly, one drawer at a time. And when she walked through that door 2 days later, all smiles, glowing from her transformational weekend, I simply nodded and said, "I'll be fine soon." Then I walked out. And this time I didn't look back. I didn't go far when I left. Just down the street, to a cheap Airbnb above a bakery that smelled like burnt sugar and sourdough. I sat there for hours that first night, still wearing the same clothes I left in, staring out the tiny window at nothing in particular. I thought I'd feel powerful. I didn't. I thought I'd feel free. I didn't. I felt like a man who had been evicted from his own life by the woman he loved, and still stupidly loved. It wasn't even anger that consumed me. It was this endless reel of memories she would never think twice about. The time she called me from her office bathroom just to say she missed my laugh. The way she used to trace circles on my wrist whenever she was falling asleep. How she made me believe that being soft wasn't a flaw but a language between souls. I kept wondering if maybe I'd overreacted. That maybe I misunderstood the photo. That maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But that small voice, the one that begged me to trust her, was quickly drowned out by everything else. The lies, the excuses, the slow erosion of intimacy, the emotional bruises she left without ever lifting a hand. I didn't tell anyone I left. Not my brother, not my coworkers, not even my friend Theo, who once told me, "You know, if she ever breaks your heart, you can crash at mine." I didn't want a place to crash. I wanted to be invisible, unavailable. I wanted the pain to wrap me up like a winter coat so no one could get in or out. But she noticed. Of course she did. The first text came the next morning. "Where are you? Did you go out for coffee?" I didn't respond. Then another. "You left the oven on. Everything okay?" She still hadn't figured it out. It took her almost 2 full days to actually say it. "Did you leave me?" I stared at the screen so long my eyes blurred. I didn't want to confirm it. Saying it made it real. But not saying it felt like I was still playing the role of her doormat. So I typed back, "I needed to breathe somewhere you weren't." That was the first honest sentence I'd sent her in months. She didn't reply for a whole day. And when she finally did, all it said was, "You're being dramatic. I told you I was just clearing my head that weekend." That's when something snapped. I had spent years swallowing my discomfort, brushing aside red flags, telling myself that maybe I was the issue because I wasn't exciting enough or bold enough or mysterious enough to keep a woman like her entertained. I had minimized my instincts for so long that they eventually curled up and went silent. But in that moment, reading that message, every silenced instinct screamed back to life. I typed, "Were you with him?" No reply. "Just tell me the truth. I deserve that much." Still nothing. I waited. I waited like a child at a window waiting for someone who promised they'd be home before dinner. And then at 2:13 a.m., I got a voice note. I couldn't bring myself to play it at first. Just seeing her name made my hands shake. But I pressed it. And I listened. She sighed before speaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't plan for this. You were always good, steady. But I felt dead next to you. You made me feel alive again. I thought you'd be fine soon. You always bounce back." That was it. That was her version of closure. She didn't say sorry. She didn't say she regretted it. Just that I'd be fine. Like I was a minor inconvenience in her storyline. And maybe I would be fine one day. But not that night. That night, I curled up under a cheap blanket in a stranger's apartment, stared at a ceiling I didn't recognize, and let myself cry. Not because she left, but because I had stayed so long while she was already gone. I didn't listen to that voice note just once. I played it 17 times. There was something about the way she said the word, alive. It didn't sound like freedom. It sounded like euphoria. Like she had already rewritten the story in her head and made me the villain, the man who bored her into someone else's arms. And this wasn't just a confession. It was her way of gently erasing me from her conscience. I didn't sleep that night. Again, I just kept lying there, replaying every word, every sigh, every silence between syllables. At one point, I even started analyzing the background noise in the recording like some pathetic detective. I could hear faint music, a jazz song maybe, distant laughter, and someone calling her name, "Hey, Darla," just before the clip ended. It wasn't my name calling her. That much was clear. The next morning, I went for a walk to clear my head and ended up pacing an entire grocery store for no reason. I picked up a bag of frozen peas and just stared at it for 10 minutes. I guess I was trying to pretend everything was normal. Like if I stood in the frozen aisle long enough, I'd thaw back into the man I used to be. But nothing worked. I was fractured in too many places. When I got back to the Airbnb, there were 3 messages waiting. The first was from her. "I need to talk to you in person, please." The second was also from her, but this one was just a question. "Did you tell Theo?" Theo, my oldest friend, my best man at the wedding, the guy who once drove me 6 hours overnight to surprise her on her birthday. He and I had grown up together. We were basically brothers. I hadn't even spoken to him since I left. I didn't want the pity. I didn't want anyone telling me it was going to be okay when it clearly wasn't. But her message shook something in me. Why would she think I'd told him? The third message wasn't from either of them. It was a notification. A tagged photo on some obscure social media page I forgot I followed. A restaurant account. A blurry candid of people on a patio, smiling and laughing under hanging lights. And there they were, her and Theo, sitting shoulder to shoulder, his arm around her chair, their wine glasses raised like they were toasting something private. My stomach dropped in slow motion. I clicked the location tag. It was dated from 2 weekends ago, the exact weekend she had gone on her yoga retreat. Theo had told me he'd be visiting his parents out of state that same weekend. He even joked about how much he hated the long drive. And now there he was, lounging beside my wife, sharing wine and stolen smiles. I started shaking. I don't know if it was rage, betrayal, or the slow realization that my entire foundation had been cracked for longer than I knew. I didn't call him. Couldn't. My voice wouldn't have come out right. Instead, I walked back to the tiny kitchen, opened the drawer, and stared at the single spoon I'd been using for 3 days. I thought about how much trust I'd poured into both of them, how I used to brag about my marriage to Theo, how he once told me, "If I ever meet someone who treats me like Darla treats you, I'll marry her in a heartbeat." Was that it? Was he always envious? Or had she gone to him when I got too weak to excite her? The betrayal didn't come with fireworks. Came like a slow poison, numbing me from the inside. 2 people I'd built my entire adult world around had folded me out of the picture while smiling to my face. I sat down. I stared at the wall. Then finally, I wrote one message to Darla. "You didn't just lose a husband. You lost the only man who ever loved you without trying to break you." No reply. Not for hours. And when one finally came, it was from Theo. "I didn't want you to find out like this. That's it." That's all he said. And in that moment, I realized something simple and cruel. They weren't sorry. They were just sorry I knew. I stared at Theo's message for an entire hour without moving. Just those 9 words. "I didn't want you to find out like this." Like he was announcing a surprise party that had been spoiled. Like my pain was an unfortunate scheduling conflict, not the result of his choices. I wanted to smash my phone, throw it across the room, tear the screen off with my bare hands. But I didn't. Instead, I set it down on the floor, gently, like it might shatter if I breathed too hard. Because somehow, even then, I still didn't want to hurt anything. Even a phone. Even after everything. That's what betrayal does to people like me. I don't get violent. I get silent. I get small. I get swallowed by the enormity of it all until I start wondering if I even deserve to exist outside of someone else's convenience. I didn't sleep that night. Again. I sat on the floor by the window with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders like some wounded monk, sipping tea I didn't want, watching the world go on without me. A cat across the street curled up under a parked car. A couple walked past holding hands, arguing gently about something dumb. Life moved forward. Mine didn't. The next day, I got the message that nearly broke me. It was Darla again. "Can we talk? Please. Face to face. Somewhere neutral." I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I needed to hear her say it out loud. Maybe I still hoped, somewhere deep in my hollow chest, that she'd cry and tell me it was all a mistake. That she'd beg me to come home. That I mattered. We met at a park on the other side of town. She chose the spot. It was the kind of place couples go to argue in public so neither one can yell too loud. We sat on separate benches under a crooked tree. She wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy. Her body language was poised, controlled. Mine wasn't. I felt like a wet paper bag trying to look dignified. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, crossing her legs. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. She waited a moment, then sighed like she was the one carrying a burden. "Look, I didn't plan any of this. I didn't expect it to happen with Theo. It was just one of those things." "One of those things," I repeated, the words catching on the edge of my throat. She looked away. "We were both feeling lost. You were pulling away." He understood me. I was pulling away? I blinked. "You disappeared emotionally for a year. You stopped touching me, talking to me. You lied about a yoga retreat to sleep with my best friend." Don't make it sound cheap, she snapped, then immediately softened her tone. Sorry. I didn't come here to fight. Then why did you come here? I asked, finally finding the edge in my voice. She hesitated, pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. I didn't reach for it. She placed it on the bench between us. I want to do this the right way, she said. Cleanly, fairly, no drama. I unfolded the paper. It was a drafted separation agreement. She'd already signed it. I didn't lawyer up yet, she added quickly. I thought we could be grown-ups about this. The phrase made me physically recoil. Grown-ups. Like this was a school project we were ending because our schedules didn't align. Not a marriage. Not a life we built together. Brick by brick. Memory by memory. I'm not here to be mature, I said quietly. I'm here because I thought maybe, just maybe, you might look me in the eye and tell me the truth. She didn't flinch. What truth? That you loved him while you were still with me. She looked away again. It didn't happen like that. Did you sleep with him before or after you said I'd be fine soon? Silence. That was my answer. She reached for her purse again. Look, I know this is hard, but we can't undo it. What we can do is be civil, respectful. I'm willing to let you stay in the house for now. We can divide everything up gradually. I even told Theo to stay away until things settle. Something in me cracked. She told him to stay away, like she was managing a renovation project. I stood up slowly. My knees felt like glass. You two planned this. Maybe not all at once, but piece by piece. While I was busy clinging to you like an idiot, you were already writing the ending. Don't do this, she said. Please don't paint me like a monster. You always act like you're the only one who ever feels anything. I stepped back, and then I said the words I'd been rehearsing since the night I left. You didn't fall out of love with me, Darla. You climbed out like a thief through a window. And I walked away, not because I was strong, but because if I stayed 1 second longer, I would have begged her to take me back. I didn't go back to the Airbnb after I left the park. I just walked, for miles, through neighborhoods I didn't recognize, past corner stores with flickering signs, past children riding scooters and couples sitting outside coffee shops like the world wasn't on fire. It was a blur of motion and sound, but I wasn't really there. I was somewhere else, inside a version of my life that didn't exist anymore. A man without a place, without a person, without a future. By the time I finally returned, the sun was gone. The bakery downstairs had closed early, the smell of warm bread replaced by a greasy emptiness. I climbed the stairs in silence, opened the door to the room that wasn't mine, and collapsed onto the bed fully dressed. That night I had a dream, or maybe it was a memory. I was back in our old kitchen, barefoot, the radio humming low. Darla was dancing with a glass of wine, laughing at something I said. I reached out to touch her hand, but it turned into smoke. I woke up gasping, covered in sweat. It had been 6 days since I left. I hadn't told anyone. No explanations. No social posts. I'd vanished so quietly, it felt like I was mourning myself in real time. But that changed when I got a knock on the door just after noon. I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't even want to move. But the knock came again. Firm. Persistent. When I opened it, it wasn't Theo. It wasn't Darla. It was Theo's younger brother, Graham. Graham and I weren't close, but we'd always gotten along. He was quieter, nerdier, kind of awkward, and had this habit of blinking too much when he was nervous. And right now, he was blinking like his eyes were about to fall out of his face. I shouldn't be here, he said without greeting. But I couldn't keep this to myself. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black flash drive. My heart dropped instantly. Nothing good ever starts with the words "I shouldn't be here" and a flash drive. He didn't come inside, just pressed the drive into my hand. You need to see what's on it, he said. It's not just about Darla. What do you mean? He looked behind him like someone had followed him, then lowered his voice. Theo's not who you think he is. He's not who I thought he was either. Just watch it, all of it, and be careful who you talk to after. And then he left. No explanation. No details. Just a drive and a warning. I closed the door, locked it, then stood there staring at the flash drive like it might explode. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped it the first time I tried to plug it into my laptop. There were 4 folders. One labeled work, another personal, a third called receipts, and the last one, the one that made my blood turn to ice, was named Curtis. My real first name, not Forrest, the name I'd gone by since college. Not the one everyone used. This folder used my real name, something almost no one knew except Darla and maybe 2 other people. I hesitated. My finger hovered over the trackpad. Then I clicked. Inside the Curtis folder were screenshots, photos, recordings, and documents. Some of them were images of my emails, private messages I had sent Darla months ago, during the worst nights when I begged her to talk to me. Others were spreadsheets with labeled tabs, emotional patterns, predictable reactions, and triggers. I opened one of the recordings. My own voice, a recording from our living room. I was crying, begging, and in the background, Theo's voice, calm, cold, calculated. Keep pushing him. He'll crack soon. You just have to keep repeating the same pressure points. I slammed the laptop shut. Couldn't breathe. It wasn't just an affair. It was something else. They were studying me, manipulating me, breaking me apart from the inside out like it was some kind of experiment. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw up into the sink. I didn't even make it to the toilet. My hands clutched the porcelain like it was the only thing anchoring me to the world. All this time, I thought I was just too emotional, too weak, too needy, but they had designed it that way. And suddenly, Darla's voice echoed in my head again. You'll be fine soon. No, she wasn't trying to comfort me. She was warning me. I didn't open the laptop again that day. Couldn't. It sat on the floor like a live wire, and I was too afraid to touch it again. I paced the room until my legs ached. I tried listening to music, but every song made me feel like I was suffocating. I tried eating but couldn't keep anything down. Eventually, I just sat in the corner with my head in my hands and whispered the same question over and over again. Why? The betrayal had already gutted me. But this was something else. This was organized, calculated, planned. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe it was just a collection of dumb decisions spiraling out of control. But that folder said otherwise. That folder screamed something far more sinister. Took me 2 full days to work up the courage to open the drive again. I waited until midnight, like the darkness would protect me somehow. My hands were steady this time, not because I was calm, but because I had passed through panic and come out the other side into something quieter, colder. Inside the Curtis folder, buried deep in subfolders, was a Word document titled Final Proposal _Draft 3. It was written in Theo's voice, casual but smug. It started with a question. Can emotional sabotage be monetized? I felt the blood drain from my face. The document outlined what could only be described as a psychological experiment. It read like a pitch deck crossed with a case study. Bullet points, flowcharts, behavioral models. Theo had used me, his lifelong friend, as the subject for some sick, twisted theory he wanted to prove. And Darla, she wasn't just his accomplice. She was the control variable, the one who could get closest to me, the one who could pull the right emotional levers. Under one section labeled Phase 2, Controlled Breakdown, there were transcripts of arguments, literal transcripts, word-for-word dialogues between Darla and me, fights we'd had in the kitchen, on the phone, in bed. I thought they were real. I thought they were raw and human and painful. But here they were, cataloged. Then, the part that made my throat close entirely. A list of predicted outcomes. Isolation, complete. Dependence on subject, reinforced. Dissociation from self, in progress. Voluntary removal from shared space. Collapse of personal identity. Target date, pending confirmation. I sat frozen, staring at the screen like it might reach out and slap me. I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing the narrative of my own life. I tried to process it all, but nothing made sense. Why? What did they want out of this? Was this some bizarre way to justify an affair? Or something worse? I found part of the answer in the final few paragraphs of the document. Apparently, Theo had been writing a book. Not just a thesis, a full book proposal for a publisher. The working title? The Soft Collapse: How to Ethically Deconstruct the Overattached Male. I swear I almost threw the laptop through the window. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about erasure. About making someone unravel so quietly that they couldn't scream when they disappeared. I clicked into the receipts folder hoping, maybe foolishly, for something redeeming. But it was worse. So much worse. There were receipts for dinners I never attended. Hotel rooms booked under aliases. Payments made to anonymous research consultants. All of it connected to me. My name. My location. My emotional decline as data. And in one PDF titled simply, Consent Agreement Darla, there was a scanned signature. Hers. A date. And a clause that hit like a freight train. Subject will not be made aware of his participation until documentation is complete. Psychological boundaries must be maintained. Emotional proximity is permitted, but reconciliation is discouraged. Relationship dissolution is preferred within 12 to 18 months of experiment launch. I shut the laptop and backed away like it was covered in fire. That night, I slept on the floor again, fully clothed, lights on, like I was afraid of being erased in my sleep. In the morning, I had one voicemail. From Theo. I don't even know why I pressed play. Hey Curtis. I figured you've seen it by now. Look, I know it seems harsh, but we really thought we were doing something groundbreaking. Darla was the only one who could access the core of you, and you were ideal for the model. You felt everything. That's rare. That's what made this so rich. But don't take it personally, man. Honestly, it's bigger than you. Bigger than me. He said it like I was a spreadsheet. A lab rat. The theory. And Darla? She said I'd be fine soon. Maybe she was right. But right now I was the blueprint for a slow-motion tragedy, and everyone but me knew the ending. There's a kind of madness that creeps in when you realize you were never living your own life. When everything you said, every reaction you gave, every breakdown you had, was observed, measured, written down, and dissected like an insect under glass. I couldn't unsee the folders. I couldn't unhear Theo's voice. And I couldn't erase the image of Darla's signature on that consent form no matter how hard I tried. But what truly unhinged me wasn't the betrayal. It was the question that followed. How many others were there before me? I sat for hours replaying every detail I'd ever heard about Theo's past relationships. How he always seemed to disappear for a while after breakups. How he bragged that he never got attached. I used to think it was just his defense mechanism. Some polished detachment from his parents' toxic divorce. But now I wasn't so sure. I remembered something small, something I'd forgotten until that moment. A dinner party 2 years ago, Theo had brought a woman named Elise. She was quiet, polite, smiled a lot, but didn't speak much. Darla had complimented her earrings, and Elise had just nodded, like she didn't know how to speak without asking permission. They broke up a month later. He never talked about her again. So I did something I wasn't proud of. I searched her name. Elise Geller. Nurse. Mid-30s. I found her LinkedIn, her clinic profile, even a YouTube video from a hospital fundraiser she helped organize. And then I found a blog post buried deep in the search results. It was anonymous, titled, Inside the Fire Without a Flame. I clicked. The writing was raw, disjointed. The ramblings of someone clearly broken but trying to stitch themselves together. She spoke about being observed, guided into emotional exposure, and then discarded. She wrote about how her reactions felt provoked, and how she was told afterward that she had performed beautifully. My heart dropped when I read the line. He said I'd be fine soon, that it was part of the process. The exact same phrase Darla used on me. I felt sick again. That phrase wasn't a comfort. It was a trigger, a cue. The closing line to the script Theo had written for his test subjects. And that's all we were, test subjects. One after another, over and over. Emotionally available men, ripe for breaking. And they called it progress. I needed to see her. Not Darla. Not Theo. Elise. I messaged the email address listed at the bottom of her blog, not expecting a reply. But 20 minutes later I got one. Subject: You too. She agreed to meet. We chose a coffee shop outside the city limits, far from where anyone might recognize us. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped tightly around her mug like it was her only anchor to the moment. Her face looked older than I remembered, not in years but in miles. Miles traveled through trauma, silence, and disbelief. But when our eyes met, I saw the same hollow recognition I felt. We didn't need introductions. We were both survivors of the same fire. He used me to test a theory, she said before I even sat down. He wanted to prove that emotionally attuned men collapse faster under subtle betrayal than overt abuse. I swallowed hard. And Darla? She's the bait, she said. Always has been. You knew her? Elise nodded. She reached out to me before the break, said she felt trapped, that Theo was pulling her into something she couldn't stop. She cried when she told me she had to go through with it. My chest tightened. So she regretted it? I thought so, she whispered. But then I found out she was still sending him reports after she moved out. I stared at the table. Everything spun. She came back once. Elise continued, said she wanted to apologize. Said she finally understood what they'd done to me. I believed her. We talked. We cried. I let her stay with me for a few days. I looked up, and she emptied my medicine cabinet and stole my laptop. I don't know what she was looking for, but after that, she disappeared. My stomach churned. I couldn't tell if it was rage or shame. Probably both. Why me? I asked. Why us? Elise exhaled slowly. Because we feel. Because we break quietly. And because no one believes men like us when we say we've been emotionally tortured. It sounds pathetic. Whiny. Weak. Exactly the kind of data they wanted to collect. I didn't know what to say, so I just asked the question I'd been afraid to ask since the moment this started. Are they still doing it? She looked me straight in the eye and said, They never stopped. And suddenly, everything went cold. Because I realized, if Theo and Darla never stopped, that meant I was just another middle chapter. Not the beginning. Not the end. Just one more heart on a spreadsheet. The moment I walked away from that cafe, something inside me finally shifted. Not like the fragile cracks I'd felt before. This wasn't pain. This wasn't heartbreak. It was something stronger. Like my spine had remembered how to stand. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't unraveling. I wasn't someone's project. I was done. I went back to the Airbnb and packed my things slowly. Not because I was stalling, but because I was finally in control of my own pace. No panic. No dread. Just clarity. I deleted the folders from my laptop, not out of fear, but because I no longer needed proof. I knew what had happened, and I was walking out of it with my head high. Before I left the city for good, I sent Theo one final message. Thank you. No explanation. No anger. Just those 2 words. He tried calling. I didn't answer. He sent 4 texts. I didn't read them. That chapter was over. The moment he lost access to my reactions, he lost control. And men like him, manipulators masked as intellectuals, can't stand silence. As for Darla, she sent me a letter 3 weeks later. Handwritten. No return address. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. That her life with Theo had turned cold the moment I left. She said I had been her compass, even when she was the one dismantling the map. She said I was too good at disappearing, and begged me not to hate her. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because I finally understood that forgiveness doesn't require presence. I forgave her for what she did, but I would never return to the fire she lit. Now I live 2 states away, in a town no one's ever heard of. I have a studio apartment above a bookstore, and I work part-time restoring old furniture. It's not glamorous. It's not loud, but it's mine. Every chipped table I mend, every crooked chair I fix. It reminds me that broken things aren't worthless. They're just waiting for someone to treat them gently. Some nights, I still wake up expecting the worst. But most mornings, I wake up in silence, and it feels like peace. Elise and I talk sometimes. We're not a couple, and maybe we never will be. But we understand each other in a way most people can't. Two people who were taken apart slowly and chose to rebuild differently. I used to think I was weak because I felt too much. Now I know that feeling deeply isn't weakness. It's proof you're alive. And as it turns out, I really am fine now. Just not in the way they ever expected. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this story here on Reddit Confessions. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that made you stronger in the end? Or seen someone try to quietly erase you from your own life? Drop your stories or thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more intense, real, and unforgettable stories like this. Until next time, stay strong, stay curious, and never let anyone write your ending but you.